And welcome. This is Dr. Latasha McElwain. I am doing a presentation today on clinical supervision, becoming a resilient leader. This presentation will be in 3 parts. And so this is starting part 1. All right. So objective and overview. Describe 4 personality traits of leadership and list differences noted by clinical practitioner. Explain key tenets and several common clinical supervision models, taking into account the influence of past, present, and future variables. And then also looking at articulating overarching ethical and legal dimensions of clinical supervision while exploring past, present, and potential future issues in clinical practice. Describe the vital nature of self-care in practice and in supervision, and explain why self-care care in an ethical empirical imperative when providing sound supervision and clinical care to others. The agenda: we're going to start with the introduction of key concepts. We're going to go into the 4 personality traits of leadership. We're going to go into exploration of common clinical supervision models, past, present, and future considerations. We're going to also talk about interactive activities with some vignettes. And then we're going to also go into clinical and legal dimensions of clinical supervision, key historical and current issues and future considerations, as well as interactive activity, self-care and interactive activity for self-care and ethical standards of self-care. All right. So at the beginning here, we want to go ahead and talk about 4 personality traits of leadership. So because we're talking about leadership overall and being a supervisor and being a resilient supervisor, looking at the different colors of this activity and the orientation. So when we're looking at our 4 personality traits of leadership, gold is going to be more structured, orange is going to be more impulsive, and blue is going to be more of a relationship, and green is going to be talking more about cognitive. Okay. So when we start going into the 4 personality traits of leadership using colors, pretty much the 4 personality traits of leadership using colors help us to pretty much take an inventory, basically, that will help us understand ourselves and others. And then also it'll help us to use colors in an activity used to promote the appreciation of individual differences, and then also using the colors to increase that self-awareness. It's a self-awareness activity that assists with understanding personality styles. So also with using the 4 personality traits of leadership using the colors, each color will reflect a personality, which we just mentioned them a minute ago. The primary and secondary color will be identified. Then there are preferences, pretty much preference styles, and then the color that are not chosen are still representative of the individual, but is not a preferred style. All right, so with this activity, it's talking about taking the assessment. So basically, rank the word cluster from 1 to 4, with 4 most like you and 1 least like you. Once you have ranked them, turn the sheet over and place the number with the corresponding letter. If you put a 1 on row 1A, then place that 1 on the back next to A. Total all your columns and see which has the highest number, and that is your 4 personality trait, the 4 personality trait of leadership color. So I'm going to explain all this, and then you're going to see some examples of it as well. Colors at a glance. So pretty much when we're talking about gold, that's a person that is more prepared. Green is the person who's, more like the Y. And when we're talking about orange, we're talking about the just do it attitude. And then when we're talking about blue, we're actually looking at how does that make you feel? So that person's more into how are you feeling about this? how is this applicable? So basically, how would pretty much we use this to work with people is pretty much um, it'll help us understand how we work with each other. It'll help us understand how to communicate with each other. It'll also be interactions during professional meetings and supervision sessions as we're having those. It definitely increase that interaction and makes it better. And then overall social interactions also. And there are some others as well. So, when we think about attributes of gold, we're thinking about an individual that is basically loves to plan things, loves to be detail oriented. That person, the gold, also likes service oriented activities. They have values, family tradition. And they also pretty much helpful and trustworthy, conservative and stable. They never break the speed limit. They never break the speed limit, and they strive for a sense of security. They're punctual, predictable, precise for the most part. When we look at gold, as far as the individual with the gold personality, pretty much they're loyal, dependable, and prepared. I need to follow the rules and respect authority. Those individuals also are thorough, sensible, and punctual. I have a strong sense of what is right and wrong in life. The individual also feels that personality of that individual also faithful, stable, and organized. I value home, family, and tradition. And then also caring, concern, and concrete. I am a natural preserver, a parent, a helper. All right. So at work, how this individual looks at work and in relationships, these are the goals. Pretty much, I provide stability and can maintain organization. I can handle detailed tasks. I believe that work comes before play. I am serious and have traditional conservative views about love and marriage. I enjoy others who can work with me to build secure and predictable relationships. I demonstrate admiration through the things I do for my loved ones. So, gold, individuals that are in the gold, pretty much they see themselves, they're stable, they provide that security, they're dependable, they're firm, always having a viewpoint, pretty much. They're efficient, they're realistic, and they're decisive. The other side would see a gold person as, in this light, they'll see them as rigid, controlling, probably bossy, dull, boring, stubborn, pig-headed, opinionated, system-bound, unimaginable, and then judgmental. So the other side might see them as that. They may see themselves over here, and then the other side might see them, over here. So they see themselves here. The other side, people looking in, will see them kind of in this light here. So when we're talking about the blue attributes, I love the blue attributes because the blue attributes is a mediator. That person is optimistic, caretaker, passionate. That person is a peacemaker, true romantic. That person is orientated for the most part, cause oriented. I'm sorry, cause oriented for the most part. They're cooperative rather than being competitive. They're very have the need to feel special, and they always have a kind word to say. They'll always have a kind word. Those individuals definitely have the attributes when we're talking about the color blue. When we're looking at blue, so those individuals are enthusiastic. They have a sympathetic personality. They feel that they have the personal feeling. I feel like I need to feel unique and authentic. A lot of times when we're looking at the warm and communicative, compassionate parts of this individual, I look for meaning and significance in life. Also, idealistic, spiritual, and sincere. I have value and integrity and unity in relationships. Peaceful, flexible, imaginative. I have a natural romantic poet, nurturer. So that individual definitely has all of those attributes. And then when we look at that person at work and in relationships, so blues tend to have a strong desire to influence others. They work in art, communications, education, and helping professions. They love to motivate and interact with others. They see a lot of things that they want. They want the harmony in the relationship. They want everything to be harmonious within the relationship. They are definitely look at the romance, romantic, and believe in the warm relationships. They also enjoy symbols of love and romance, such as flowers, candlelight, looking at music and small gestures, things of that nature. Those individuals also, how they see themselves: warm, caring, compassionate, likes to please other people, trusting, romantic, spiritual, creative, and idealistic. On the other side here, individuals looking in might see them as over emotional, definitely, soft, fawning, I'm sorry. Also, top trusting, mushy, when it comes down to hopelessly naive, too nice, and maybe sometimes even aloof. That's people looking in at individuals with blue. When we get to green attributes, intellectual, those individuals have their ideal people. They're very complex, sometimes perfectionist, philosophical. They also have standard setters. They're standard setters. They're visionary. They're futuristics. They definitely look to see what's coming. Can never know enough. They always want to learn stuff. They're cool. They're calm. They're collected, and they work. Work is work, and work is play, and play is work. So they're really big time. I always say they enjoy pretty much what they do. So when we start looking at green attributes again, we're looking at the analytical, global, conceptual. We're looking at I seek knowledge and understanding. Cool, calm, collected. I live by my own rules and standards. Logic, perfectionist. I value intelligence, insight, fairness, and justice. Abstract, investigative. I am a natural visionary. So they look into solve problems, and they're not going to conform. They're nonconformist. Um, at work, and in relationship, greens are more of the independent thinkers. These individuals will develop models, explore ideas, build systems to satisfy their needs, to deal with innovation. Once they create or perfect an idea, most likely they will move on and allow others to maintain and support the idea. Those individuals also prefer to let their head rule their heart. They also feel once feeling and stated they should be um, obvious to others. So I feel once feelings are stated, they should be obvious to others. So they kind of, letting you know what it is. They may not like to repeat themselves, and that's just me adding something in because I reread that little phrase there. But anyway, I want to establish relationships and live to maintain its self, so I can return to my work and study. So they basically want to establish and create something and then leave so it could be maintained and they can go back to doing whatever it is that they typically do for the most part. Those individuals. So basically, as for the green, they see themselves as superior intellects. They see themselves as calm, not emotional. They see themselves as precise, not repetitive. They see themselves as under control, able to find flaws and objectives, and hold firm to policy. Others may see them as intellectually snob, cold, aloof, unfeeling, critical, fault finding, afraid to open up, unappreciative, stingy with praise, and doesn't consider other people in plans. All right. Now moving on to the orange. The attributes of the orange person: playful, energetic, charming, risk taker, test limits, quick-witted, master negotiator, also creative, impulsive, spontaneous, natural, entertainer, likes tangible rewards, and appreciate immediate feedback. And in here, you'll also see it with the orange, wit, charm, spontaneous. I act on a moment's notice. Impulsive, impactful. I need fun, variety, stimulation, and excitement. Optimistic, bold. I value skill, resourcefulness, and courage. Physical, immediate. They are also basically natural troubleshooters, a performer or a competitor. They definitely get to it. And at work and in relationship, the oranges are I am bored with routine and structured jobs. I am satisfied in careers that allow independence and freedom. I am a natural performer and love physical coordination. I like relationships where I have shared activities and interests. Also, I thrive on physical contact. I enjoy giving extravagant gifts that bring obvious pleasure to special people in my life. Those individuals, what the self they see them as fun loving, enjoys life, spontaneous, flexible, um adaptable, carefree, proficient, capable, hands-on person, practical, and problem solver. Other people may see them as flaky, irresponsible, wishy-washy, not serious, spending time at things they enjoy, um not interested in ideas, disobeys rules, and manipulative, not to be trusted. So that's what other people may see them as. So moving right along, conversations. When you're talking about conversations, a blue individual, they love to talk. Blue individuals tend to be direct and honest. They talk about their feelings, avoid issues that might end up in conflict, ramble, and they get off the subject. So they pay attention to nonverbal communication. All right. When it comes down to green individuals, those individuals, their conversation would be more tend to rely on facts. They're giving you facts, factual conversations. They ask a lot of questions. They tend to say things only once. They definitely, you can see that there's definitely, they avoid a lot of small talk. They argue both sides of an issue. And a lot of times worry that they are not being understood. Conversation with an orange personality, basically that color says that they say just the right things. They dominate what is being said. They do definitely get right to the point. They make decisions quickly and they create energy and excitement, and they focus on results. When we get to the gold person in conversations, that in gold personality, they pretty much use clear and precise language. Cut the small talk, want to keep the conversation in order, talk about responsibilities, and focus on how efficient things are, want to follow an agenda or a plan. So, for the most part, when conversations come up, in order to speak to a color in a way they will understand you, then you should consider this. Blue, relate to what you are saying to feelings, avoid open criticism, put people's need ahead of procedures, and be honest and genuine, and then leave room for input and questions to keep your promise. So with them, when you're communicating with them, you definitely want to be able to understand that about the blues. And then with the greens, you want to use clear and precise language. You want to use logic and support, and in your decision, you want to get right to the point, keep the conversation relevant, and ask meaningful questions. Talk about possibilities. All right, in conversation, in order to speak to a color in a way that that they will understand, you should, with the orange, you pretty much are looking at cut to the heart of the problem, give them straight stuff, be bold, and say what is on your mind. focus on action and talk about results and keep the conversation lively. When it comes to the goal personality, you definitely want to be give straightforward directions. You want to use reference in the past and tradition, not get sidetracked and keep the conversation in order. Also follow an agenda and talk about responsibilities. So that's the goal. When it comes on to problem solving, then with blues, um, pretty much their personality is kind of like, how much do I care about what I gain or lose in each alternative? What are the values involved, and what are the value what excuse me, and what that the value involved basically, and how will people concern react to the outcome, and who is committed to carrying out the solution. So the blues are pretty much there. The greens are pretty much where, what are the pros and cons? And they definitely are in the logical consequences. We don't know what those logical consequences are, and what is the consequence of not acting on it. When we're talking about the oranges are pretty much talking about what are the possibilities, what ways are there to solve the problem, and what does the data imply. So they definitely look at the data, and we look at the goal. They're looking at what are the facts, what exactly is the solution, and what has been done. So they're definitely focused on that when it comes down to problem solving. So this is the color arrangement pretty much, and the thoughts that are going on when it comes down to solving problems with those individuals and the personality they have. Capturing their interests with the blue, you definitely want to provide opportunity for social interaction. I mean, social contact, excuse me. Offer a clear outline of expectations, and then offer the opportunity to do things that are creative. So when we're talking about the greens, pretty much ask them information, pose problems, and allow them to solve problems independently, provide opportunities for them to build and display competencies. In orange, you definitely want to make assignments short term and challenging, and give them the opportunity to show their cleverness, and then also provide hands on activities. Gold, you want to allow them to basically display their leadership abilities, and have them organize others, have them maintain stability, consistency, and rules, and clarify expectations. So that's when we're talking about, capturing and keeping their attention. So enhancing esteem, pretty much to make these individuals feel like they're being heard and everything's kind of moving in that direction. The blues reassure them of their self-worth, organize their accomplishments, and accept who they are. The greens, you definitely want to provide feedback on the quality of their work, provide assistance in choosing tasks that are difficult and challenging, but achievable. And then with the orange, you definitely want to provide frequent change. You also want to have pretty much be able to challenge their imagination. And the gold, you definitely want to be able to provide consistency, give clear and specific feedback, and establish clear rules and regulations. Okay, so now you're going to see pretty much the word sort here. And this is where you're going to actually place the numbers in based on the instructions we gave earlier. So you're going to go in here and kind of put your 1, 2, 3 down the page, 1, 2, 3 down the page, 1, 2, 3 down the page, 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry, down the page. And as you're speaking of reading on all of these and going through as to what fits you most. So if you're competitive and you're, definitely impactful person, that may be your 1. You feel practical, sometimes dependable, might be my 3. And excuse me, might be my 3. And then, it's just whichever one comes across. So basically, once we go down the list, we'll figure out, okay, the 1, 2, 3s, and 4. I'm sorry, I did it wrong. We're going to go down the list 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then down this list 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we're down this list 1, 2, 3, and 4, and down this list 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the totaling at the bottom is what's going to give us our answers here. So, and I'm sorry, I said it wrong again. Um, we start at the top here. It's going to be across the top, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's more that actually resonates with you. That's it. And then across here, we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. Across here, 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll cross here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Across here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you come up with your totals. You got 11, you got 14, you got 5, you got 20. So your your largest numbers here is going to be over here, which is your green area. And your next largest number is going to be right here in your gold area. So these are the ones that you're going to resonate more with. Is basically your strongest areas is green and gold, and your preference would be over here orange, because that's the next one, which is 11. And then it's not that blue is not there, but blue is just not your lucky, your preference per se. So this is kind of how this is set up, so we can kind of see, oh, let's see, where I fall when it comes down to, oh, let me go back right quick, when it comes down to the numbers. So again, blank, go across each one, put our numbers in, 1, 2, 3, 4, across each one. Again, across here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 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 across here. Come up with our final. Largest one is the 20. Next one is 14. Those are our two highest preferences. And then 11 comes in with the orange, and then blues right here. Okay. All right. So when we're looking at clinical supervision, okay, so exploration of common clinical supervision models, past, present, future considerations. Okay, so as we get more into this presentation, the activity we just did a minute ago basically gives us an idea for what level of personality with colors that we're dealing with individuals that we're working with to provide supervision to, individuals we're working with that we actually work with, individuals we are working with that we supervise in an administrative role, or whatever the case may be. So that's the reason for the activity starting at the beginning and kind of getting some ideas of how to communicate with individuals, how to work with individuals, how to, help people feel like they're being heard and that they're involved in the interaction, communication, and everything that's going on. So that's what we use that first part for. I love that setup because it does really focus, it helps you focus on what type of individuals, when we're talking about colors, that you're actually dealing with when it comes down to their personality. So I tend to use that same activity when I am doing supervision. When I kind of meet a new group, sometimes I'll bring that activity in. Every now and then I'll show some of my supervisees that activity so that they can do it on their own as they're going into supervisory for licensure, as well as they're going into positions like that, becoming a supervisor themselves. I would work with them and get them on track with using the color system. So moving right along, the exploration of common, exploration of common clinical supervision models, past, present, and future considerations. So clinical supervision pretty much is a process of supervision where supervisors and supervisees meet to create individual plans for supervisees to learn how to work with their clients in a systematic manner, pretty much using the models that have been taught in school, as well as models that they kind of resonate closer to and feel more comfortable with providing with a lot of their patients. And that will pretty much create a standard and identify knowledge base of fundamentals to practice clinically and ethically. So for the most part, when we're looking at supervision, clinical supervision is used to enhance the supervisee skills, pretty much their competency and their confidence level, to provide reflective space, that emotional support there, as well as to provide assistance with professional development. So to definitely ensure that services, when they're seeing clients, the clients are definitely getting safe services, they're getting ethical services, they're getting competent services. So definitely to ensure competency with professionals and organizational treatment standards and practice. Okay. So for the most part, more supervision definitions, when we're talking about clinical supervision is when a new professional with limited working skills and knowledge, they would learn the work by observing, assisting, receiving feedback, and oversight from a more experienced and accomplished member of the same field. Clinical supervision is also an intensive educational process that is conducted by a more experienced professional to facilitate the therapeutic competency of a supervisee over the 2-year associate licensure period. All right. More definitions when we're talking about supervision. Definitely and excuse me, intervention provided by a more senior member of the profession to a more junior member or a member of the same profession. The relationship is basically evaluative, extends over a period of time, and there's also some simultaneous purposes of enhancing the professional functioning of the more junior person, monitoring the quality of the professional services offered to the clients. They also will see basically, excuse me, the supervisor, the more senior individual, will serve as a gatekeeper for those who are in the particular profession as well. Moving right along and talking about additional, and all of these supervisory definitions are definitions that come from all of our studies when we're talking about supervision. So we have intensive interpersonal focused on one-to-one relationship with one person is designated to facilitate the development and therapeutic competency in the other person. And then we're looking at clinical supervision as a discipline, excuse me, tutorial process wherein principles are transformed into practical skills with 4 overlapping foci as far as administrative, evaluation, clinical, and supportive. So moving right along, when we're talking about supervision, we definitely want to make sure that we are understanding all those definitions we mentioned about supervision and understand what our key position is to be the more senior individual, to be able to make sure that our supervisees are well on their way to getting some good support, some good administrative support, some great ability to reflect on what they're doing, as well as get good feedback. So we definitely have to be those supportive individuals. When it comes down to the common models of clinical supervision, there's several common models here that I'm going to mention. So we have the developmental model. We definitely have and you can definitely see them here. We have some orientation specific models. I'm not going to read everything word for word, but I'm just going to keep on going down. Bernard's discrimination. I can't say that word right now. Discrimination model. Also psychotherapy-based supervision model. We have cognitive behavior supervision. We have person-centered supervision. And, we have psychodynamics approach. And, so there are a lot of different things there, social and eclectic model. We're going to go through each one. And when we are talking about the developmental models, basically developmental model basically focuses on the change process of the supervisee in supervision over time. So you see a development happening over a period of time. They come in not knowing as much. Basically, it's the beginner to the intermediate to the advanced stage. And they have 8 areas of growth, pretty much, when they're talking about developmental model and the 3 levels of being a supervisee. You're a beginner, you're an intermediate, and then you're an advanced individual. Focus It focuses on the awareness of self and others, motivation and autonomy, as well as the developmental model refers to a notion of continued growth. So notion of continues to grow and continue to get that knowledge and everything. So when we talk about Scofield and Runestad, they emphasize when they're talking about developmental model is over a lifetime with the continued reflection, and they talk about 8 stages and 20 themes also. So when we're looking at the the integrative model reflects basically that eclectic and rely on more than one theory or technique. Also, eclecticism tends to focus on techniques from different schools without having a scribe to the theoretical approach that they came from. So it's kind of putting some things together and working things out. The Bernard discriminatory model has 3 separate foci, and that one is intervention, then talking about conceptualization, and then personalization, as well as 3 supervisor roles: the teacher, the counselor, and the consultant. I think that's one of the big ones that I definitely like to consider when we're talking about the integrated approach, when we're putting some of these together, is going from the supervisor role being the teacher, and then being the counselor, and then being the consultant. So a lot to think about there. We're talking about orientation specific approaches. We're looking at orientation refers to the counselor who adopts a brand of therapy. So a lot of times examples of that would be the person-centered therapy or the cognitive behavior therapy, brief solution focused therapy, and then psychoanalytical therapy. When we talk about psychotherapy-based supervision, models are explained as supervision that follows the framework and the techniques of the specific theory and model of psychotherapy that is being practiced by the supervisor and the supervisee. So there's a lot of going back and forth and kind of conversating and being able to reflect on what's happened and what's going on. All right, we're back to Runningstad and I can't say it either. Hope model, and I'm all tongue twisted here, but I'm not going to take that out. I want to keep on going here. Based on the longitude qualitative study, basically interviewing 100 counselors and therapists. They pretty much did that in order to create this model and then analyze the results of the data in 3 ways. They went through the stages. Went through the 3 ways of the data. The stage model. They went through a theme foundation, theme formulation, and then they went through the third one is the professional model of development and stagnation. So pretty much this one is one of the ones that it's a long-term, pretty much long-term, and interviewing 100 counselors and therapists to kind of come up with, okay, what is the result here, and then kind of going through those results. We look at Bernard's discrimination more. We talked about that one a little bit earlier as well. So that one, basically 3 areas of focus for skill building, process, conceptualization, and personalization. So the process is how communication is conveyed, how individuals are having conversation or approaching the situation or approaching the conversation that they're having. How are they communicating? Conceptualization is how well the supervisee can see the big picture, as in what is happening and what is going on, and basically how to move forward with that big picture in mind, and not getting really caught up on the small things that may or may not cause any concerns. And then personalization is the counselor uses their persons in therapy for non-defensive present to the relationship. So non-defensively present into the relationship. So a lot of times that definitely helps with some personalization of some things that are happening and that's going on throughout the supervision, throughout this model. We look at psychotherapy based supervision model. This is the type of supervision that gives a natural feel as an extension of the therapy itself. So a lot of times it gives you that you resonate with things more. I like to say that the theological and presentation of collection of clinical data will be discussed during supervision, which flow um, from the counseling session to the supervision and then back to the counseling session. So you hear what's going on in the counseling session, you bring it to supervision, and then those recommendations or those uh, 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 I can't think of the word, those uh, oh goodness, I can't think of it. So those recommendations and those interventions you will be taken back into the counseling session. I don't know why I couldn't get that word out just now, but moving right along, talking about psychodynamic approach to supervision. So when we're talking about the psychodynamic approach to supervision, we're definitely looking at the basically divide into the three categories of patient-centered, supervisee-centered, and then supervisory matrix-centered. And then also looking at the patient-centered is to focus on the patient's presentation and behaviors. The supervisor is in a didactic role to help the supervisee to understand and treat the patient. The supervisee centered is focused on the supervisee's experience as a therapist and the focus can be on the supervisee's anxieties, learning, and resistance. And then the supervisor matrix centered is examining the relationship of the supervisor and the supervisee. The supervisor's role is to participate, reflect on, and parallel processing. So that helps the supervisee become stronger at understanding everything that they're seeing and being able to work with the patient and then understanding how they're feeling as in what's going on with them with providing services and then having that relationship with their supervisor where they can actually be able to work through a lot of those things. Cognitive behavior supervision. CBT supervision focuses on cognitive behavior of the supervisee's professional identity and the reaction to the clients. So for the most part, CBT techniques are used in supervision to include having an agenda for supervision, connecting information from previous sessions, assigning and following up with the homework assignments for the supervisee, and summarizing the sessions by the supervisor. So there's a good little bit that goes on there with cognitive behavior supervision. And a lot of times supervisors do get into doing all of these parts. This is one that I kind of gravitate towards as well. And then person-centered supervision is focused on the person-centered supervision. Pretty much is that the supervisee can have the ability to become an effective counselor, and the supervisor serves as a collaborator. So, for the most part, the supervisor's role is not to pretty much not to be the expert, but to provide a safe place where the supervisee can be open in the experience and fully engaged in the client's care. So person-centered supervision also focuses on the supervisor-supervisee relationship to allow for effective learning to encourage growth. This is another one that I kind of lean towards as well because I do feel pretty strong with doing that with a lot of my supervisees. Social and eclectic models. Pretty much the supervisor is the teacher, counselor, therapist, facilitator, case reviewer, and consultant, as well as other activities, including evaluation, monitoring, modeling, and supporting. When we're thinking about some of the social and eclectic models, also Hawkins and Schultz model is the show help model is considered a social role model with the focus on pretty much client, therapist, and supervisor that consider 5 factors: the role of the supervisor, developmental stage of the supervisee, counseling orientation of the supervisee and supervisor, and the contract between the supervisor and the supervisee, and then the setting or modality. So another way of thinking of, making sure that you're providing that level of supervision. So taking into account the influences of the past and the present and future um, variables. So in the 1920s, um, 1920s was the first publication of supervision among social workers. Administrative supervision exited way before text was published. Supervision moved from administrative focus to direct supervision. Supervision was to pretty much help social workers practice knowledge and skills and to allow for emotional support to the professionals. Supervision did not have much to do with the evaluation of the professional's deficiencies. So that's in the earlier years when we're talking about supervision. In 76, basically the first published work on supervision and social work came out. 79, there was a write-up pretty much that they worked on. Munson worked on supervision in social work. In 1980, then we look at Hess doing the psychotherapy supervision book. In 85, we can see that we also had Heath and Storm that came up with additional work regarding using one favorite clinical model in their clinical practice, clinical supervision practice. And then around jumping back to 61, there was a counselor, educator, and supervision journal that began. And then 83, there was a clinical supervision journal that also began as well. And then in 86, they had work that came up with the family therapy education of supervision, education and supervision. And in 88, then they also came up with the handbook of family therapy training and supervision. 92, they came up with the foundations of clinical supervision. And then in 97, we started looking into the handbook of psychotherapy supervision. And then around the 90s, 92, 99, 2000, substance use supervision. Basically, articles were written by a good bit of practicing providers, clinicians. And then when we're taking into account the influences from the past, present, and future variables, we're also looking at that they also started with clinical supervision in alcohol and drug abuse back in 2004. Moving right along, presently we're looking at clinical supervision is geared towards evaluation and distinct professional competency and core competency. Typically, when we're talking about clinical supervision, is now viewed as a teacher, coach, consultant. Our clinical supervisors are viewed as a teacher, a coach, a consultant, mentor, evaluator, and administrator. And then when we're looking at clinical supervisors, also we observe, they do, and I do as well. We observe, we mentor, we coach, we evaluate, we inspire, and we create an atmosphere that promotes self-motivation, also learning and professional development. With that being said, when we're also taking into consideration, of course, the influence of the past, present, and future, presently there are strong emphasis on administrative supervision and clinical supervision. Administrative supervisors have to make decisions about supervisees regarding merit raises, disciplinary actions, and placing a supervisee on probation or a work plan. So clinical supervision clinical supervisors are more focused on developing their supervisee skills. Also, we can look at the fact that with clinical supervision, supervisors having dual investment in the quality of services and professional development, whereas administrative supervisors focus on communication, protocol, personnel, policy, and a lot of the fiscal concerns. For the most part, being a supervisor that's helping an individual with licensure pretty much falls under wanting to make sure the quality of service is good and making sure that the developmental process is definitely the professional development is happening with a lot of the supervisees. Also taking into account the influence of past, present, and future variables, the present modality of supervision. Of course, we're looking at individual, we're looking at group, we're looking at team, we're looking at case consultations, live supervision, online supervision, and didactic. Future supervision will be more so via online using secure video conferencing to provide face-to-face sessions and group with great physical distances between the supervisor and the supervisees. So state to state, also due to the shortage of supervisors in certain areas, telesupervision harness the advancement of technology to create an easier, more efficient path to licensure. The rate of supervision, as supervision becomes more competent and specialized in the area of supervisors become more competent and specialized in the areas of supervision education, the rate of supervision will also go up. So we'll definitely see an increase there. Supervisees, excuse me, could fall back to 1 hour to 2 hours per month of meeting for supervision, which slows down the process. So that's something that's currently happening as well. So 1 hour of supervision, per week, and then the 2 hours of group per month. I know that is some of the standards in some of the areas. And then also more supervisees are interviewing supervisors regularly to locate the right fit due to the investment of time and resources. Dual licensed or credentialed supervisors are that have more than one expertise. That's pretty much what the job market is now requesting and looking for. And so a lot of time counselors in heavy populated area, larger cities, that is the going gig, that you are licensed in several states and doing bit more when it comes down to working to the top of your license in different areas. Competency will continue to be important. However, competency is a limited and different area of expertise. Is unlimited with different areas of expertise. So we definitely got to make sure that we're competent in those areas that we are working in as well. And then the ability to use several different interventions. So a lot of times, such as coaching, feedback, and case discussions, things of that nature, being well versed in the ability to use different type of interventions and different type of approaches and things of that nature. The importance of supervisors and supervisees to keep their evidence-based knowledge and to the skills up to date during professional long learning. So definitely keeping your skills and all that good stuff in place. All right, so this is where we're gonna take a break, and we will start back with case studies, and we're gonna start on slide number 58 for part 2 of this presentation. And I am happy that everyone was able to stay with us through a good bit of the understanding of what's going on currently when we're talking about clinical supervision, and be able to understand pretty much how things are going and where we're kind of going to with the services that we will be providing as supervisors as the years continue to go on here. So, again, this is Dr. Latasha McElwain. This is part one of the clinical supervision, becoming a resilient supervisor. And we will begin at slide number 58 for part two. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, evening, or afternoon.